I'm Jeff Schusterman. I'm one of the Vice Presidents of New Zealand Actors Equity. This is Olivia Schusterman. She is the youngest member of New Zealand Actors Equity. She joined up, she had a paying gig, so here's some serious competition for the future. She was in the women's voting Sunday feature that was on not long ago. Let me introduce, let's go through the formalities first. Okay, we're going to basically discuss today, can I get my piece of paper? What you really need to know about working in New Zealand, coming out into the environment here. As a performer, and a lot of information from seasoned performers to find out how best to survive in a pretty tricky industry, in a very tricky environment. Because it comes as no surprise to anyone that economically things are pretty ropey at the moment, so therefore that affects a lot of aspects of our culture, especially funding, because it's all about money. However, first things first, before we get into that stuff, let's talk some housekeeping. Can we just set phones to silent or turn them off, however you may choose. The bathrooms, one is there, behind the black door.
It's probably not great to use that one. I think it's filled with crap for the show tonight. Yeah.
There's two downstairs in the foyer just as you're walking in. Yeah. They're artfully decorated. We'll be having a coffee break from 2:15 till 3. The day will finish at just after 5 o'clock. Then you can all go for drinks, and I'll take my daughter home and get her fed. There's a lot of speakers lined up, various panels lined up for you today. You'll hear from some recent graduates about what it's like to be working as a professional actor in the early years, and then we have an in-conversation session with some more seasoned actors later on, including Bronwyn Ture, who you'd know from Go Girls, Alison Quigan, most recently from Shortland Street, but she's been around a while. Michael Hurst, who's been doing his one-man Shakespeare show around town recently. Tandy Wright, who's cast on Nothing Trivial. We'll also talk to agents and casting directors. So there's 2 afternoon sessions there. You'll be given the opportunity to ask questions at each of these panel sessions. You do, you've got your lovely dress on, eh? Or a lovely dress that you have. What's it got on it? Hearts? Hearts. Cool. Okay, and if we run out of time, feel free to approach any of the guest speakers at any time, during a cup of tea. Everyone's here to talk, basically. And the thing that you will find about New Zealand Actors Equity that is an associate outcome for what it is that we do, aside being an advocacy body for New Zealand actors, we're into community building. So this is your community. Welcome to the community. Okay? Here, this is where it starts, folks. This is where it starts. So I think it's worth a round of applause because look, I'll give a brief introduction to our speakers here for the first panel session, which is recent grads and who are now becoming jaded seasoned professionals. Seasoned jaded seasoned? I don't know. Hard working. If you have any issues, problems, anything that you need to ask from a procedural perspective across this day, please talk to Anna Majavi. Have you met Anna? Did everyone meet Anna on the way in? Okay, great. She's Equity's industrial organiser. She is the only paid person that is a member of, that is paid by New Zealand Actors Equity. So she's our front line. The reason we do that is that there's a lot of admin, obviously, to cover. Plus, the media needs someone as a go-to. The organiser is that person, so that no individual actor, unless they, of course, choose to, is put out into the forefront of any issues that may come up. That's one of the things. I mean, that's what New Zealand Actors Equity does. Through bonding, through community, we have the strength to be able to get what we want. Because individually, you will find, hearing anecdotally across the day, but also practically in your careers, that you're in a tricky situation in terms of personal power. Okay? How do I put this without sounding too bleak? There's always someone else. Whereas if we all stand together, then we're just together. So there is no other, there's just us. And that's one of the core arguments for New Zealand Actors Equity. However, before I get too fucking heavy, I'd like to welcome the panellists for the first session of the day. This is a session is an opportunity to focus on what happens in the first year or two after you've graduated your training institution. Our panellists will share their experience of their first years out. Actually, it's more than a year or two, it could be a year or 10. So let's welcome Pete Coates from Outfit Theatre Company, Gray Burton, a maker and realisateur, who's got 2 shows currently playing at the moment. First is Conversations with Elko out at Pump House Theatre, and Freeload in this space here. Final show tonight, right?
Final show tonight, equity discount, of course.
And Jodie Ellis, who is a graduate of Unitec. Both Pete and Jodie are graduates of Unitec School of Performing and Screen Arts.
Me too, but only in directing, writing.
Oh, there you
go.
go.
My acting.
Still, Unitec School of Performing and Screen Arts.
Yeah.
So, all Unitec grads. Jodie graduated 2 years ago? 1 year. She's now producing for Blanket Productions, her own production company. Had 2 shows running here not long after graduating. So you'll come to understand that to put yourself out there, sometimes you need to wear many hats. But anyway, I've heard enough from me, and Olivia really wants to play with the phone, so that's when I start freaking out seriously. And I'll put it to Pete. Pete, we'll begin. Can you just give us and feel free at any time to ask questions or save your power until the end. It's entirely up to you. Pete, what was it like graduating Unitec?
I graduated in 2007, which is 5 years ago. I was really lucky, really lucky. I was a full-time employed actor for 15 months directly after graduating. I spent the first 9 months touring the North Island with the Duffy Show, which is a charity show for Books and Homes charity, and we did 10 shows a week over 9 months with school holidays off, so we did about 250 shows to about 30,000 kids, which was an amazing experience. It was really hard, it was also really fun, and I was lucky enough to do it with 2 people who I went to drama school with, which made it a lot easier. And then from there I went down to, I found an audition online on The Big Idea, which is a website you should all be checking all the time. I found an audition for a play called The Great Storm of 1868 down in Oamaru, of all places. And I went, it's in Oamaru, really? But I asked for a copy of the script, and it was written by Michael Ann Forster, who is a tiny Californian Kiwi who writes New Zealand historical drama, which is a bit strange, she's Californian. But she's an amazing writer. She wrote Daughters of Heaven, which is about, which is a similar story to Heavenly Creatures, and My Heart Swims in Blood, and a number of other plays. I asked for a copy of the script and read it and thought, I have to audition for this play, it's amazing. The part was to play 7 characters. It's a 3-hander with 15 characters, all up. And it would have been 6 months in Oamaru. So I flew to Christchurch for the day to audition. Did the audition, was pretty sure I got the part. They pretty much told me I got the part, which was a good feeling. That doesn't happen often. And then flew back that night and continued on with the Duffy Show. And then did get the part. And so immediately after finishing the Duffy Show, I flew down to Nelson, which is my hometown, spent a couple of weeks with my folks, and then drove to Oamaru and lived there for 6 months in a little 1-bedroom flat on the main road. And did the show for 4 months of that. We did 75 shows. It was a tourist show, and Oamaru has a really old part of the town, Victorian white stone. It's the only part of New Zealand that has an untouched area from hundreds of years ago. And we were in there, and it was great fun. Again, working with 2 young actors quite closely and living in quite close with people I didn't really know at the start. And then so I'd done 15 months solid work, and then I came back to Auckland and I kind of had to start again. All my graduating class had spent the year auditioning and getting to know casting directors, and I hadn't. So I had to start at the bottom. So I did a lot of auditions, commercial auditions and theatre auditions. My big tip for the first couple of years would be audition, 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 audition. Just, you've got to do it again and again and again until it's second nature. My first commercial audition was terrible. Oh, it was so bad, it was embarrassingly bad. But they had me back. And I've gotten work through that casting director now. And while I was away, the Outfit Theatre Company, which is initially made up of my graduating class, was starting to come together. We did our first show in late 2008, I think. While I was in Oamaru, I was keeping up online with what's going on, and everyone else did the K Road show, which is our first ever show. And then we did a show as part of the Auckland Fringe Festival, the first Auckland Fringe Festival, which was a show called Little White Men. And then I came back and kind of got involved. The first show after I came back was Treasure Island, and I just ushered and did a little stage management. And then the first show I did with the company was the Office Christmas Party in 2010. After that, the Outfit's a funny thing. We were really naive when we started out. We thought, we can put on a show, we don't have to do that. So we did, and they went well. And that's kind of where it got harder, because then you start to build an audience who you've got to look after, and who you've got to let know what's going on, and you've got to communicate with. It's all well and good putting on a one-off show that you promote right then and there, but when you want to do it again, and you want to get the same people to come, you've got to find a way to find those people, to let them know that you're doing it again. So I slowly started doing more work, became part of the management team, and now I do all kinds of things. I do ticketing, I do PR, I do some graphic design, some writing, and that would be my other tip the first couple of years. You've got to do everything. You can't just be an actor unless you're really lucky. You've got to be a producer, you've got to try your hand at directing, you've got to try your hand at writing, and you'll find things that'll sit better with you. Like, I'm not a particularly good writer. I'm good academically and I'm good at writing PR, but not so good at writing dialogue. But this year I've directed for the first time and found that I've got some skills in that area. And producing, I've got some skills in that area. And in the outfit, we've got people who are good at graphic design and who are good at writing dialogue. And so we've all kind of graduated to the areas that we fit into. And I think that it's really important to just try things in those first couple of years.
That's a great intro, and I think it's probably a good time to jump across to Grad, because we could go on and on. No, because Gray's another actor who has many arrows in his quiver, and does other metaphors. Insert metaphor here. Great. Go for it. What was your background?
Look, I think I have the virtue of having graduated eons ago, and I felt like I've had many year ones, and it does feel like that as your career builds. Before I even went to school, I had a year one at 17. I went to Wellington and decided I was going to be famous, and spent 6 months with, and fortunately, I had a relationship with an actor who was able to get me an agent at the time, so I was able to get some work. But really, I didn't know a thing. I was just reaching and trying to absorb as much as possible, and I think that's a skill that everybody has to have in this industry. You have to be able to absorb as many skills that you are exposed to as possible. And look for the details in those skills too. It's fine. After that time, I went back to my hometown, which is also Nelson, oddly enough, and became a producer and director at 17, and started producing my own work. First show was Much Ado About Nothing, and we decided to start as large as possible, and had a cast of 30 or 40 people, and learned how to direct by just doing it. Most of what you're going to learn coming out of drama school will cement the skills that you have gained, but it will also give you an opportunity to really sort of edit what you are as an actor and performer. And that only happens through the doing, and then taking some time to really assess that doing and see what has come out of it for you. I've always let my internal dynamo drive me. It's important to have a massive energy and love for what you do, and you have to keep feeding that, because it gets challenged all the time. You will get challenged with some of the most horrendous auditions you will ever do in your life. I auditioned as a hand puppet, like this. All that showed on the camera was my hand, and I'm improvising with my hand with another hand. It wasn't you, was it? No. Another hand, and as I'm doing this, Lee Tamahori just walks through the background laughing his head off. I'm never going to work for Lee Tamahori again. You know, those experiences are going to happen, and you have to not let it kill your spirit and confidence. That's the most important thing. I went from that experience going directing and producing into experimental and physical theatre, and trained for 2 years, and I was very lucky to be able to be exposed to some pretty far out forms of performance. Things that developed me physically and mentally, and developed a discipline towards that. And I encourage you guys to make sure that when you leave your courses, you continue the disciplines and you continue the conditionings that you do in those courses. Because I found after graduating that it took me another 2 years to realise I didn't know how to act. That I still was waiting for those skills to actually become a part of my muscular memory, to become an instinctual thing rather than an academic, intellectual thing, so that I didn't have to think about what the subtext was. The subtext existed. So I didn't have to think about what action I was going to employ. The action was a natural reaction to me listening and relaxing to the circumstances. And those are things that only develop if you continue with your conditioning and with your discipline outside of a teacher driving you forward. That's where you have to maintain your confidence, your internal dynamo, and your passion and your love. I came out of that first year, and I was very fortunate because that was in 1998, and there was still such a thing, even in 1998, as an equity minimum. You remember that? Equity minimum fee. So any job you did in a professional realm, you were guaranteed a minimum payment per week for that work. It disappeared pretty quickly after that. I was lucky. Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, it was about Asian economic crisis too that year. I was fortunate enough to come out of that school halfway through my last year. I had auditioned for a tour of Southeast Asia. Are any of you guys at Unitec at the moment? No? Unitec students? So I went with John Davies over there, who's the head of Unitec School. And we toured Southeast Asia with 13 shows, rehearsed in 8 weeks in Auckland at Pitt Street Methodist. Yeah, the Methodist Church. They still use it as a rehearsal space too. It's a really handy space if you want to use it. And we had 8 weeks to rehearse 13 shows. We talked about full-scale Macbeth, full-scale Midsummer Night's Dream, full-scale Twelfth Night, full-scale The Crucible. Yeah. Poetry shows I directed for the first time. There were only 13 of us who toured. And we played all the roles in all 13 shows, 13, and we toured around and performed. And that was really trial by fire. And you know you're going to stay in the industry if you can survive that kind of thing. And I think those things stay true. People say, if you can do Shakespeare, you can do anything. Well, you know, if you can generate your own work and you can generate your own style and art form and sustain it, you can do anything. And really the longevity of a career stands for that. Well, we went over there, we performed, I came back. I was fortunate enough to get an agent pretty much when I came back, and landed into some work straight away on TV. At that time there was Young Hercules and Hercules filming, and I was lucky enough to sort of fit into a slot where I looked a little bit like one of the other actors, so I could play his brother, and I slotted in, and I got quite a lot of work that way. And then, after about 2 months of being back in Auckland, it all stopped. I was no longer a fresh face. I was no longer the new thing. And there were no auditions. No budgets had been authorised for shows. No commercials had been authorised. It was a dead patch, much like we've just had. And what could I do? I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any resources. I didn't have any budget. All I had was some skills. So what did I do? I went back to school. And Raymond Hawthorne had just started up the directing and writing degree at Unitec and invited me to come join that. And I did for 2 years and graduated that in 2001. And in 2001, please feel free to disagree with me, the industry was awful. It was a horrible time in Auckland. There was ATC, I think, was the only professional theatre company in Auckland, and everybody else was struggling just to make enough money to buy a beer at the bar. I even made a documentary about it here, and I ran this venue at the end of 2000 for 6 months as a part of my degree, and part of that was to assess the industry over 6 months and present my assessment. And at the end of that assessment, I presented that even though I had a degree, the only way I could sustainably work here was if I went and got a bar manager certificate. So hospitality was still the only sustainable job for anybody in the performing arts industry.
Does anyone work hospital at the moment?
Yeah,
just the one.
You can appreciate it. And you know, the famous old adage, waiters, actors are all waiters, just waiting for the next job. So I actually, from that, I was pretty disillusioned. And like Pete, I went back to Nelson because I had worked out that I would have more success if I produced and developed my own work and toured it around the whole country and avoided Auckland. Did everywhere else except Auckland. And I would be able to sustain that. And it is, outside of Auckland, it's a completely different world. Even Wellington's a completely different world. Here, big pond, we're all little fish, you know. You go past the Bombay Hills, the potential for your fish to expand is exponential, you know. But you miss out on a lot of things. You miss out on a lot of relationships, collaboration, inspiration and creativity.
And what year was that when you went back to Nelson?
That was 2001, and I didn't stay very long. I ended up touring a couple of months later. So that first year out, I was
in the time since then, everything's become much more Auckland focused.
Oh yeah.
Even more so now than it was then.
Yeah.
So the opportunities, especially to work in the commercial realm of television or film in particular, are very, very located here.
Yes.
And what you're going to find is a lot of actors who graduate in Wellington are going to move up here.
Mm. Which leads to my next year one, me moving back here in 2009. At that stage when I came back, I had a career as an artistic director of Shakespeare, of my own theatre and theatre company, and had produced a lot of work, so I knew how to make work and create it, and so Auckland was the next big challenge. And fortunately I was lucky enough to come back, and a lot of the people I graduated with 10 years before who had stuck in were cementing themselves in the industry, and I still had really firm relationships with them. And I came back with a very different attitude because I had a skill set. I still had my instincts, and I had my drive, and I'd let a lot of the skills sit in my body. So my focus was about relationships. And I think that it's massively valuable that, particularly in your casting, in your work with your fellow actors, in your work with your agents, how you build and maintain your relationships is as important as how you approach a role and how you present a role. A casting director, wants to know that you are going to be a positive force in the work that they're going to put you forward for. Not only that you have the look, that you have the talent, but you have the component that makes it successful. And that is usually the positivity. It's usually your ability to connect, to listen, to relate. And with that goal in mind, it's been great. Everything has been growing from that, and I still maintain that all of my work is relationships first, is putting the way I work with people first. Yeah. And it's been really successful so far.
Cool. Thanks, Grad. So we'll move on to Jodie. Jodie, you're the most recent graduate here on the panel today. You're also the only woman on the panel today. So how is it for you? No, well, I mean, it needs to be acknowledged. Insofar as it's a very different experience for a woman as an actress as it is for a man as an actor. So how's it been graduating, Jodie?
It's been crazy.
Cool.
It's been all over the place, it's been up and down. Yeah, definitely. As a woman, it's a lot different because I think my demographic, my age, and my gender is the most populated of. It seems to be of any in the acting industry, and so it is really hard to get any kind of paid work because there's so many of us and we're all looking for the same thing. But I guess my attitude is I've never thought of, I've never sat back and waited for anything to happen, and if nothing's happening then it's because I'm not doing anything. And I'm quite happy with that, so if nothing's been happening for the last couple of months, it's because I haven't been doing anything and I need to kick it up. But yeah, so I basically, when I started getting towards the end of drama school, I knew that I wanted to go out and create my own work. And do something that I really cared about without people telling me what to do and telling me how to think and that kind of thing. I just needed to get out. And I was really lucky. I met someone at drama school who shared a lot of my views and worked in the same way that I do and wanted to create the same kind of theatre. And so I think that that's a really important thing to know when you're at drama school, is that the people around you can, anyone that you click with, they're people that you can use and work with in the industry, they're your allies, and you need people that you can work with, and that you can work with again and again. And honestly, I don't think that I could have done any of what I did without this other person. And it's support and yeah, we managed to create something that we both really wanted to do and that we really cared about, and without too much difficulty. Well, yeah, without too much difficulty. I mean, we did it. But basically, we did the writing and directing elective at Unitec, and so we both had discovered that we really enjoyed writing, and it was something that we could do. And so we sort of set out to plan projects that we could create from scratch using those skills. And we had a whole lot of meetings over that year, just throwing around ideas and going round and round in circles, basically, like, well, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this, and then got towards the end of the year and I was just like, look, what are we going to do, because it's nearly crunch time and we've got to decide on something. I said to Amanda, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to write a short comedic theatre piece and put it on. And I said, great, because I want to develop a short drama piece that I've written further. And so, just like that, we decided to do a double bill, and that was it. And, once we decided what we wanted to do, it was fairly simple from then on, because you learn so many skills at drama school, it's really just putting them into practice. But, yeah, so we had a meeting with Charlie at the basement in November of last year, so before we even finished, we just kind of wanted to get it going straight away. And he thankfully gave us the go-ahead and gave us one of the last spots for the first 6 months of this year, and in this space here. And then he said to us, so are you guys going to produce it yourselves? And I remember looking at Amanda and just thinking, what the hell does that mean? And then we were both just like, yeah, sure, yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I know what it means now. I definitely know what it means now. And, boy, there's just, thankfully I'm like a business-minded kind of person and I really enjoy all that kind of thing and the administrative side of things and organising stuff and doing all that kind of thing and management as well, so that was lucky. But, just the, just the volume of work that we had to do was just insane, the list of things that we had to do just as producers, and we were crazy enough to say, okay, let's write and direct and act in it as well, because we just wanted to do everything. So it was...
Famous last word.
Yeah, it was insane. Most insane 6 months of my entire life. I've never taken on so much work in my life, and I really don't know how I did it. Like, you just had to get up in the morning and think, there's 4 hats, which one am I going to put on for the next couple of hours, and then after that I put on the next one and the next one, and within those hats you had so many jobs that you had to do. It's just crazy. So looking back, there's no way I'd do all of it again, but in saying that, we did it, and I had this massive list of things that need to be done to be put on to put on a theatre show, and I did each and every single one of them, and I could do them again. So, and that was the point. That was the point. It wasn't so that we would create something amazing. We did want to do something that we cared about and something that we could feel happy with at the end, but it was really just so that we could learn, and I think that that's a huge part of your first year out. It's just, you learn, yes, you learn skills and you learn how to be an actor at drama school, but you don't learn how to work as an actor, and you don't learn how to manage yourself as a business. And I think that, I'm not sure about this, but I suspect that a lot of people, when they graduate, don't create their own work because they simply don't know where to start from a producer's perspective. But there's so many people out there that can help you. Like Equity has lawyers and actors, producers, directors, writers, administrators. There's Charlie and Sam at the basement. There's so recent graduates to not so recent graduates who can help you. Like, they all helped us to no end, and honestly we knew nothing when we started, and if you don't know when you start, then you will learn, and that's the point. As far as what I'm doing now, like we did, our aim was to set up our own theatre company, and so that's sort of we're in the process of that. But Amanda's gone to the UK, so we're focusing on doing writing for now, building up some of our just some plays and things like that, and we'd like to do a film and things like that. So and I'm going to move to the UK next year, so we'll kind of carry on when we get there. But I'm really lucky that I have her as someone that I can look to. And honestly, I could not have done that project without Amanda just like having a meeting every day and being like, what are we going to do? And she, like, one of us would be freaking out every day and the other one would be okay. So it was always like, I'm the one that's okay today, don't worry, it's going to be fine. And the next day I'd be like, oh my god, it's all falling apart. But you knew that you had the other person and it would be fine. But yeah, and the other thing that I would say is I have an amazing acting coach, Casey Stetson, who I do acting classes with once a week, and I think that's really important. Through the production, and when I haven't been working a lot, has been really necessary to keep up your skill base and just like keep you thinking as an actor. And she's an incredibly supportive person and like supports my acting and the way that I act, and it's good to just go there once a week and have someone who really believes that you can succeed in this industry. I think that's really important as well.
Cool. Thanks, Jodie. Well, just sitting here and listening, and also having had the experience of graduating in drama school, and it's a very familiar story. You've got to be a self-starter, I think, if we can distill it down to anything. You need to be a self-starter and back yourself. Really, that's what it comes down to. However, are there any questions? Are there any questions for the panel? All these stories that you've just heard now are very familiar. Everyone that is an actor has them. It's very true.
I have a question for Pete.
Sure.
How many hours do you put in a week into the outfit, and sort of what do you do on a week-to-week basis? Because you're a co-artistic director.
No, I'm administrator, is my job title, though our job titles were a bit unsure about them. We gave ourselves those titles years ago when we didn't, we need titles. Have a title. We all kind of look after different areas. I would say I do, it depends on where we're at in terms of our production cycle. So at the moment we're in pre-production for the Sex Show, which starts rehearsal next week. So
Second season.
second season, yeah. So I'm doing maybe 10 to 20 hours a week at the moment, and that's things like massaging the budget. By massaging, I mean moving numbers around so that they look better at this stage. It's the biggest budget show we've ever done because it's a stamp-supported show. It's in the concert chamber, which has 300 seats. So we need to sell 1,300 seats to break even, which is the most we've ever had to deal with. So when I say massaging the budget, that's actually quite an important job. And Stamp also has a lot of expectations. They don't actually care that we've done 4 of the shows this year. We were halfway through Alice and we're getting emails from them, we need this, we need this, we need this, which is good, it pushes us along. So I'm doing, at the moment I'm working on the press release, I'm working on collaborating on design, graphic design. Then when we start to ramp up, when we get to releasing our marketing, releasing our PR, all those things, then I'll probably be putting in 20 to 30 hours a week, and that's outside of rehearsals as well. We also have weekly meetings as part of the management team, and we use Google Docs, and we conference through email a lot. Just yesterday I spent an hour back and forth with our co-artistic director on like really minute wording of the 25-word description for our Christmas show, which is also a stamp show, which is going into the Edge Live magazine. We don't actually know what that show is yet, so we've got a title. We do this all the time.
So it's devised work.
It's devised work. We have a title, we have an image, we think we know kind of what it's going to be about, but we can't be too specific at this stage because we haven't created it yet. So we we do this all the time. Like the Sex Show is a great example. The Sex Show, Auckland Fringe last year, the deadline for Fringe was 3 or 4 months before Fringe. We knew we wanted to do a show about sex. That was all we knew. So we called it the Sex Show, because it was going to be about sex and it was a show. And we had to write the blurb for the Fringe booklet 4 months before the show without having created the show. So I'm getting quite good at writing very broad descriptions of what something might be, while still trying to sell it.
Yeah, careers are built on faking it till you make it.
Yeah. And other members of the management team will put in different hours as well, depending on their roles. I do a lot of the nuts and bolts boring work, so I probably put in a little bit more time than a few other people. Whereas Joel, who's one of our co-artistic directors, he does a lot of our graphic design, so he'll put in a very concentrated burst to get our image ready, and then he might step back for a while and not do very much. And Sarah looks after, who's our other co-artistic director, she looks after long-term goals and strategy, so she tends to organise and run planning sessions, long-term planning sessions, and that means like she might do a 40-hour week for 1 week, where we all come together, the management team, for a week, and we just look to the future, we just plan, and she'll run that. And then Emma, my flatmate, is our production coordinator, so she'll do similar hours to me, but very show focused. And then Jackie, who's our sponsorship coordinator, she does bits and pieces, like if we're prepping for a show and we need sponsorship, she'll be on the phone trying to get sponsorship, but other times she might not be.
And how long have you guys been together and how many shows have you made?
We graduated together in 2007. We formed the company in our final year. My whole drama school class at UNICEF formed the company. Since then, about 14 of us are still in the still, as founding members, still working with the company. A few have gone overseas, a few are working on other projects, but there's kind of a core group of 14 is still there. We've added 10 or 11 more people to our core group. We've also worked with 10 to 20 other people. We've done...
How many shows?
16,
Okay.
I think.
And do you get paid for your work when you do the admin stuff?
No.
So how do you survive?
How do I survive?
Yeah.
Well, I think you were saying about hospitality before. It's really, you're going to need another job.
Yeah.
Realistically, you're going to need another job.
Or you've got to be prepared to starve.
Well, yeah. At the moment,
Which is good for TV.
I've never had a day job in 15 years of working in this industry. I've starved.
Yeah.
Several times. But I made a commitment to just work in the industry. And it hasn't hurt me starving. I haven't starved to death yet.
I also went back to school. I'm just finishing my Masters in Arts Management, which meant I got a student allowance for the first time, which was great, although that's changing. But that's just finished, and I'm running out of money. But I just got an ad a couple of weeks ago, which is on here now, which just paid yesterday, so that's going to support me for another couple of months. I'm shooting another ad tomorrow, Monday, so that's going to support me for a couple more months. But you've got to make that money last.
So I think the interesting thing to note as people that are graduating into the industry is that, yes, you may have gone through an acting program or maybe going through an acting program, but you're also graduating into the industry. And the industry has many different positions available and many different platforms with which to share work, i.e. theatre, television, film, the internet, radio, wherever you may choose to make your work and produce your work. Everyone sitting on this panel, and myself included, wear many different hats, not just as actors. It's very challenging to make a life as an actor exclusively in this country. Very challenging. You'll hear from some this afternoon who even then, within their deep experience, wear many different hats. It's just the nature of the size of the market that you're coming into, the industry that you're coming into, the geography that you're coming into. It's sheer practicality. So I think you need to be prepared, and by being prepared, it's being aware. Realistic.
And starting now.
Yeah.
Really.
That maybe that idea that you had in the shower 2 months ago to do that one-person show might be something worth pursuing.
I would
You might have to
just
produce it.
on jobs, just before we move off there, I would say it's really important to work, if you can, to find a really good flexible job.
Yeah. A job you can walk away from.
Yeah, or a boss who understands. I worked for a long time at a cafe with a boss who understood, and I could get time off very quickly for auditions. So often you're going to get the audition the day before the audition. Your agency's going to ring up and they're going to say, the audition's 10:30 tomorrow, can you do it, yes or no? And
We're working on extending that time frame
yeah.
to 3 days. You've got a little more wiggle room, but at the moment it's completely unregulated, so you can be called up within 24 hours to have an audition, especially for commercials.
Sometimes you're going to get it on the same day.
Yeah.
And they're going to ask you to learn a script. Do you know the Man-Troll advert?
Yeah.
The guys walking through the thing. I auditioned for that. I got the script on the same day as the audition. It was a monologue, page long, that I had 2 hours to learn. So seat of your pants auditioning, that's what that is.
Question up there.
How do you get from the idea, or say that you've written something and you want to do it, and how do you get from that to getting money and booking the venue and bringing in actors and people to be on the door and anything like that?
Oh,
Well, there are lots of different things
My
there.
mind can't connect those two.
As Jodie said, lists.
Yeah.
yeah.
You do a list of everything that you can possibly think of that you have to do, and you slowly make your way through it. And you ask. Well, when we started out, we asked a shitload of questions that may have been embarrassing in hindsight. We just asked, how do we do this? Like, as Jodie said, Charlie and Sam and Sophie and Michelle, who all worked here or do work here, those guys have done it, and they want you to succeed. This place is going to help you a lot if you want to do those things, because they want you to succeed. They will send you a production booklet. If you book a space here, say this space, for next year, they will send you a production booklet, and in that booklet they will tell you everything you need to do. And they will, you need to do a press release. If you don't know how to do one, ask us. All those things.
Also, you know, if you're at the stage where you've got an idea and you've got a script, just deciding what exactly you want to do with it and how big you want it to be, sort of like setting out your goals. Like when we had an idea and a script back before we graduated, we just said, well, Amanda was leaving she was leaving in June, so we knew we had to do it before June, so we knew we needed enough time, so we said May, and then we knew we wanted it to be sort of the best that we could at this stage, so we thought, let's go for the basement. So then you know you want to put on a show at the basement, and you know what time frame you're going to get, and then you just sort of go from there. You've got to decide what you want, really, and then set out time boundaries, goals. Yeah.
There is lots of opportunity to overcome obstacles that you can put in place in your mind, you know, before doing a show. Like, how much is a venue going to cost? You know, that can be a massive confidence killer and obstacle. How much is marketing going to cost? You know, how much are the props going to cost? The cost thing can be a massive obstacle. But there are ways around it, and there are ways through it, and there is opportunity. Fringe Festival next year, a lot of venues won't charge for their use. You know, we won't have to hire it, or it'll be a percentage. Like Basement for the first time is doing a percentage of door sales for the first time ever, and that's a huge leap ahead, but a massive opportunity for people to do that. Pump House Theatre is doing the same thing, and that's a 200-seater. So the opportunity to actually really get ahead with a large-scale production without that pressure of higherage is quite huge.
And Fringe will, like the Basement, send you a production book.
Yeah.
Fringe will send you something that says you need to do all these things. This is what we need from you, and this is what you should be doing. And everyone, especially if you go through someone, like through the Basement, through Fringe, those guys want you to succeed, and they will help you.
Creatively, if you say you've written a play and you've got 12 characters in it, and you don't have the people around you who are excited yet, start sharing it. Start getting it around. You know, you're in a room full of people who are wanting to have opportunity, and outside of this room, you know, every actor wants an opportunity to get on stage and perform and work towards that goal. So it's about really sharing that idea and that dream, and then taking what you've got and flying with it. That's what I work with all the time.
That's a huge thing as well, as getting over the problem of the fear of failure and the fear of exposing yourself. Like, looking back, there's a million things that I would change, and we failed in a lot of ways in our show, but like we got to a point where we stopped worrying about it, because it was, you just have to. I mean, I used to write and I wouldn't tell anybody about what I'd written, and I wouldn't read it to anyone, and I couldn't, because I'm a control freak and I want it to be perfect. But I just got to the point where you have to keep reading your work, because then people give you feedback and then it improves it. You know, you have to share it so that other people can see it, and that's just the first step. And then, you know, it goes from there. Putting on a show is, especially of your own work, is so exposing.
Yeah.
It's so, like, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself on the stage and say, this is what I have. And especially for us, we did everything, so it was really sink or swim, this is what we had. But, you know, you just got to do it.
That relates to commercial auditions as well. You're going to fail. You're going to have auditions that go horribly, and you're going to feel like crap. I did one 2 weeks ago for Spartacus, and I messed it up big time. And I was livid with myself for 2 days. And then 2 days later, I got an audition for this other thing, and it went brilliantly. And that picked me back up. And it's going to mess with your emotions, and there's going to be really hard times. But you need to be realistic that at the end of the day, you love what you do, and you're going to keep doing it because you love it.
And remember, you guys are entering the industry. You have an opportunity to forge new ground. You can redefine with your work what people consider theatre and film to be. And you can make the rules just as much as the rules that are out there are. Yeah.
I think it's important to note what you have available to you. You have the people that you share classes with, you're training with, as a resource. You have potentially equity in that community that you've entered into as a resource. You have your teachers as a resource. You have, depending on family relationships, you have your families as a resource. For you to be able to go to test ideas, to ask for favours, to ask for help. I think it's very easy, especially early on, to feel incredibly alone in this business. So sometimes it's good to take stock as to what you have access to or who you have access to make you feel a little less alone and a little braver to put yourself out there. Because as actors, that's what you do. And the other thing as actors that it's easy to recall in the theatre and maybe a little easy to forget when you're working in film and television, is that as actors, essentially you're a collaborator. You work with other people all the time. Now that's the meat and potatoes of what it is that you do. You forge relationships. It is by the strength of your relationships performed on stage or in front of a camera that allow an audience to be effective. So, in your life, use your relationships that you have. Positively, I'll just tap that on. But use the relationships that you have to be able to work towards what you want.
And your teachers,
don't lose sight of it.
Your teachers become your colleagues.
Yeah, totally.
I remember,
They do.
On our final day, Michelle Hines said to us, tomorrow you guys leave here and you're no longer my students, you're my colleagues. And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't really think that would be true, but it is. Jeff was one of my teachers, we're now colleagues, we're working on something together. And I see Michelle all the time, and we're colleagues, it's not a student-teacher relationship anymore, and I can ask her for help.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing. When you get to work with your teachers, I remember when I graduated drama school, so I trained down in Wellington. When I graduated, there was one teacher there that I hadn't really worked with a lot when I was at school. We were lamenting it because, we got on pretty well. I graduated, we ended up doing a play, radio play, television show, all sorts of things together, and became firm friends. And it was just fantastic. We had a really good working relationship. So, yeah, it's amazing the way those relationships shift and mature and what they can provide you. What do you got,
Question
Liv?
for Jodie. So you're a recent graduate, Jodie. I've just noticed that there's a lot of girls here today, and I was just wondering, coming into the industry from school, how have you found it, like with audition-wise and getting work and things, the reality of it for them?
Yeah, I found it really hard, but I'm at a, it's very personal. As I said, there's a lot of girls and there's not so many female parts, and we're all going for it, and that's hard. But it's not just because I'm a girl. It's a personal thing. Everybody's going to have their own issues with getting work, and I've had issues with the commercial, my look being commercial enough and things like that. And it's a personal thing, and it's not necessarily about being a girl. It's just everybody's going to have their own issues with getting auditions and getting work and stuff like that. It's just part of it. It's gotta.
I think realistically it is harder. There are more girls in the industry.
Less roles.
And less roles.
Yep. And it can be hellishly frustrating, believe me, when guys swan in and say, oh yeah, I've got this audition, I've got that role, and you're like,
particularly with commercial things as well. I think more for girls than guys. Girls can be up against models. You might be an actress, you might be up against a model because they're looking for a look, not a...
That's right.
I think, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think women are judged differently to men, and in a much more superficial fashion.
Yeah.
And that's just hard.
Di Rod, who's a casting director, came and talked to us while we were at Unity, and she'd been casting Hercules or something like that, and she said she had pleaded with the producers to make this old man role, which had one line, an old crow, and they would not do it. They would not take this one line part and turn it into a female part, just because in their heads they've gone, no, it's got to be a guy, it's got to be a guy. And that kind of thing does pervade the industry, that often they will, as default, cast something as a man.
The awesome thing, because it could all just get a little doom and gloom, the awesome thing is that on a global level there's much more democracy now, insofar as the way that you can make your work and share your work.
Yeah.
It's cheap to buy a camera, it's cheap to shoot something, it's cheap to cut it, and it costs nothing to put it up online.
Yeah.
And no one's judging you by the way you look or the quality of talent or whatever. You can just do what you want. I mean, ultimately it comes down to how good is it, how engaging is it for an audience to be able to build an audience, but it still lets you get your work out there, and that's unprecedented. That's something that's only barely a decade old. And that's phenomenal, that's phenomenal. We're just scratching the surface as to what's available in that regard. And it's changing the
Very
industry.
commercially viable.
Changing the industry. People are
My
shooting
acting
themselves.
coach just told me to do that as well, actually.
Yeah.
But that was one of my things when I was leaving drama schools. I didn't think that there were enough good female monologues and good female leading parts in plays that didn't rely on a relationship with a male character. And I had a real beat on my bonnet about that, so that was one of my goals when I left. I forgot about that actually, I need to keep reminding myself about that, was that I knew I could write and I wanted to write good roles with females. And especially, I knew that, like, that was me and Amanda's thing, was we were like, we can write. I mean, it was completely selfish. We were like, if you're going to write, then write a good part for yourself. We're actors at the end of the day, so, you know, yeah, write for yourself. And yeah, that's something that I definitely wanted to do, was write good roles for females.
And work makes work.
Yeah.
Like you write something for yourself, you put it on, who knows who's going to come? And they might see you in that, and then they want to see you for something else, and then they cast you in something else. And then that leads to something else, and so on and so on. Really, really works like that.
How many of you are willing to actually try and make your own work? Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Great.
Cool.
That's fantastic. I mean, you know, if you don't feel confident with writing, then devising is an entirely valid process, and one that you guys employ a lot
Yeah,
with your process.
we
And
kind of just
that's
created our
great
own
shows.
process.
Yeah.
Just got in the room and we know we've known each other for
That's
so long that we improv a lot and make stuff up, and there's nothing like a deadline to motivate you to have a script, and the best deadline in the world is an audience full of people expecting a good show.
8 o'clock on a Thursday night.
My one-man show came out of a devising process and into a script. We had a lot of facts behind us to explore, but the script was secondary to actually getting up on the floor and trying things out. It's about being motivated to try. And
Actually, one of the reasons we started off devising is that it's expensive to buy scripts. Like realistically, it costs you money to get an existing script. We've now done that a couple of times. It has cost us money. It's been a different process for us. But also, on the flip side of that, living in New Zealand, lots of scripts haven't been done here. Heaps of awesome scripts out there.
yeah.
What kind of price? Like, how much is it like?
Depends on the deal you can swing.
Yeah, and it depends on the size of the house, the number of shows that you're doing, the ticket price, all of that. It's about getting the rights to be able to perform.
A general sort of
You have to
factor
pay
here,
in advance as well.
for say a venue this size, for an international script that's kind of on the open market, you might be looking at anywhere from $50 a night, a performance night, to $200, $250 a performance night, and that's for 60 to 100 season. For a New Zealand play, generally, you pay and this is very generally, you pay a $500 deposit, and then you would pay 10% of the gross ticket sales that were beyond that $500 threshold. So if you made more than, if you made like $6,000, for example, you would owe the playwright $600, but you've already given them $500, so you've given them the $100 difference. That's which is really fair because it looks after the playwrights.
10% is pretty common.
Yeah.
For punk rock, which we did here earlier this year, we negotiated directly with the playwright's agent because the script wasn't available via. There's some agencies out there that just markets that push scripts and handle all that for the playwrights. Hal Leonard is the big one in Australia and New Zealand, but Simon Stevens was not with them, so we went directly through his agent, and we had a 10% deal, 10% gross ticket sales with an advance of $1,000, I think it was, and we ended up not having to pay any more on that advance.
I still pay a royalty to my co-writer and co-deviser for the one-man show I'm performing now, for every performance. And as the show develops, as I develop it my way, that percentage just shrinks a little bit more. But by the same token, he has the same right. So he can actually take the script and go and do his version and develop his version. And we just adjust the relationship because we just keep communicating.
The other thing to keep in mind is music. Costs you money as well.
Yeah.
Those guys are artists. They deserve to be paid. And APRA will come after you if they become aware of your production, become aware that you're using music. They will come after you and look for money. So it's good to start off with a good relationship with them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not a huge amount. It's relatively small.
Yeah.
But it all adds up.
It depends on usage.
And how much. It depends on a lot of things.
Yeah. But yeah, it's relationships. You know, be aware of them, get out there, you know.
That's incredibly key, especially in a market the size of New Zealand. Relationships are very, very important. Good relationships. No one wants to work with someone that they don't like or that they don't want to spend time in a room with.
And commercially, if you're on set and you're being a problem, you're costing that production.
That's exactly right.
And that's a problem for them, and they are not going to think twice about firing you and bringing someone else in.
You have to give me time.
And they can. Under your contract, they can get rid of you very quickly.
Undeniably. Under the existing contracts, yes, they can get rid of you incredibly quickly and not have to pay you out at all.
They could have another actor in the corridor behind the door getting ready to take over your part.
That's right.
And I know someone that's happened to. They hid him behind the door as the first actor was said goodbye to. No, great job, see you later. And then they brought him out from behind the door and reshot the whole thing.
There are going to be all sorts of obstacles like that, guys, in your careers as you're building them. I recently was cast into a show and had a very successful shoot day. We all had a great time and we got everything wrapped, and then 2 days later they realised that they needed someone 20 years older. And recast it and reshot that whole day. And that was no fault apart from me not being old enough, you know. But sometimes they just don't know until afterwards, until after the fact. And that can be a real confidence shaker. You could be waiting a year for something like that, like I have been, and get knocked back, and that work will never be seen. You'll never be credited for it. But, you know, why do we fall, Bruce? Pick yourself up again. Yeah.
2 years ago that I found the big idea, unpaid short film. I went to the audition, didn't know who these two guys were. They'd asked me to bring a script from something, so I brought something from There's Something About Mary. Did the read, got the part, shot the film. A year later they won the 48-hour film competition with their film Child Jumpers. They're now making a feature, and I'm good friends with them. I'll hopefully get a part. They were nobodies when I started working with them. 2 years later they're creme de crop, so who knows what we can do.
Well, I think this is possibly... Are there any more questions?
Not a question, but just a comment.
Yeah, go for it.
Charlie just, he came to see us at the Actors Program, and he mentioned that there is, from Equity, a co-op kit where you guys can get it to start, getting a hand of producing your own work. So that's a very good...
It's a freely available tool that's on the New Zealand Actors Equity website.
Equity was invaluable to us. I wrote a contract for the actors and crew members, and that took me 6 weeks, and I sent it to a lawyer at Equity who looked over it and sent it back, and just endless little bits and pieces that they helped us out with. It was really great.
Fussy's arrival triggers the segue into the next panel session. Hey Fuss,
hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Thanks for that, Tatiana. So that co-op kit is available, and that's for a cooperative venture. Do people know what a cooperative venture is? Anyone not know what a cooperative venture is?
Maybe you should enlighten us.
Okay. Cooperative venture is where everyone takes the risk or shares the risk of the production equally. So it's basically everyone's working for the same amount. They're working for a share of the production or a relative share of the production. So, for example, the stage manager would work across the rehearsal and run of the show. The actors would work across the rehearsal and run of the show. The designer might design something, and then so that would only be a smaller share than what the people that are committed for a longer period of time are. This is all available. All of that breakdown is available on the Equity Co-op kit. It's available on their website, actorsequity.org.nz.
Yeah, and share the risk.
Yeah, got to pay your bills first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions? Cool. Okay, well, thank you very much to the panel here for sharing.